Hi everybody, it's Russ. Welcome to My Hammers 11. Today I am joined by Robert Banks, author, as many of you know, West Ham fans, A Rational Hatred of Luton, which I loved, West Ham Till I Die, and The Legacy of Barry Green. Have I got them right, Rob?
Yep, that's it.
And also, he's the man who's keeping me sane because he's uploading all the end of season reviews onto his YouTube channel. So it's like my binge watch Netflix. I've done Tiger King, and so now it's all the West Ham reviews. Hi, Robert. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Trying to keep busy. Luckily enough, I'm able to work from home, so
yeah,
nothing's really changed in that respect. It's just I don't have to get on the train every morning.
I know, it's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely in a way. You're saving lots of money that way.
Yeah.
So what we do is on this channel is basically, obviously, we find out your 11, and I'm really interested about finding out about the players you pick. But what we do first is just to prove your West Ham credentials, so to speak.
Oof.
Oh, so a little quiz, a bit like the sort of the citizenship check test, just to prove
this could be really embarrassing.
Yeah. I'm sure there's no wrong answers, which is great, as they say. So the first question we ask is, what was your earliest West Ham memory?
The whole reason that I support West Ham is the 1975 FA Cup final. My dad, we had a black and white television right up until that point. My dad went out that Saturday morning, and it wasn't because of the cup final, but he just happened to buy a colour television that day.
Oh, how great.
And it was the first football match I saw in colour.
Wow.
So it's hard. I guess it's hard for the millennial generation to believe that, but
yeah.
there was only the FA Cup final and a few England matches on TV in those days. So you didn't see much football, and what you did see was in black and white, and or in our house anyway.
Yeah.
So it was the first football match I saw at home on TV in colour. West Ham won, and it was just the whole, I was taken in by the whole atmosphere and the colour, the claret and blue shirts and everything. And to be fair, there was a bit of a connection there already, because Dad had a friend at work who was at the game, and I think I would have been about 6 or 7. And he said, keep an eye out, you might see him. So we were glued to it as kids watching it anyway. But that was what got me. That was what got me hooked on West Ham, and I was into football anyway at that point.
Yeah, sure.
But I hadn't really got a club, that I was really passionate about. So that was what got me hooked.
And that's it. And then that was it. That was it for life.
Yeah.
Then, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
I've often wondered. It's one of those sliding doors moments.
Yeah.
If West Ham had lost that day, perhaps things would have been different.
What would have been? So, if that was your earliest memory, what would you say, Robert, was your greatest memory? It doesn't have to be a game. It could be meeting a player, or I don't know, bumping into someone with a West Ham shirt in the middle of Venezuela or something like that. Anything that sticks in your mind.
It's difficult, really. I suppose in terms of there's great memories in terms of how you look back on things and remember them fondly, and there's other things that you go through an emotion at the time. I remember in my second full season, it was about 80, I think it was 84, 85. We beat Norwich in the 4th round of the FA Cup, and when you think about it now, it's not a big deal. But I just remember the atmosphere in the ground that night, because we came from 1-0 down to win 2-1. And everyone doing the conga down Green Street on the way home and stuff like that. Those sort of things stick in the memory. But obviously also my involvement with the books and everything. Yes. It's given me a bit of a privileged position from time to time. I've been very lucky to be invited behind the scenes a few times to various things. And I did the 50-50 draw on the pitch in 2003, I think it was. So there's been, a few things like that stick in the mind. When I was involved with the fanzine, we used to go in and talk to Harry Redknapp for a couple of hours every season, and that was a great privilege.
Sure.
It's hard to narrow it down to just one. Yeah,
that's the great idea. Is obviously for a lot of people they have different things. Some it's a game, as you said, some it might have been just that Norwich game. To you was
it'd be obvious to pick out things like,
of course,
the playoff final, or it's a big regret of mine throughout my my fanship career, that I missed all three playoff finals, and I missed the cup final in 2006. I wasn't there, so I feel that I've really missed out on a lot. But I've been there at Stockport on a wet Wednesday night when Dowie scored his own goal. So I've let no one doubt my credentials. I challenge you.
No one doubts your credentials. But no, it's funny. It's as I said, that you're, in very sort of similar to me, Robert. In terms of having some privileged access, so to speak. So I was fortunate to. Obviously, I play the music at West Ham, and that for 20 years almost now, and seeing around sort of the last game of the season, last game at the old Gaff, being able to. I think it was on jury service. So it was the case didn't start to the afternoon. So I spent 3 hours in the morning just walking around the stadium, sitting where I used to sit with my granddad and having a wee in the changing room and things like that, which no one else could do. But it's like I did it, so it was all right. Yeah. No, it's great. It's as I said, it's one of those things. Everyone has these different games and things like that, and obviously people talk about that Ipswich playoff game as being, but I agree. It's the little ones, and you said the conga line down the Green Street and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay. What we'll do is we'll crack on. Actually, we'll go with your Hammers 11. Right. So there's a few rules. One is it's 4-4-2. No fancy Dan.
Okay, that's
good.
That's how I set it out. Yeah.
That's good. That's nice and simple. Secondly, it's your 11, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the best players, the best left back, but your favourite players maybe, or your players which you shouted at the most when they were playing for West Ham or whatever. It's up to you. And the last rule is you must have seen them play live. So you must have been alive to see them. So obviously I couldn't put in Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst, but I could put in Andy Impey and Danny, for example.
Yeah.
So
interesting selections.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's the ones that's come front of mind all the time. Me and Andy Impey and Danny, bless him. Right. So what are we going with, Robert? Are we going to go for your best players or?
Yeah. What I've done is because you said it was like a free choice. I've actually selected an 11 of players that I've either spoken to or met, more than just getting an autograph or a selfie kind of level, so people that I've engaged with over the years, and I'd like to think not necessarily that they'd remember me, but that it was more so something a bit more than just a handshake. So
it's a personal thing
for various reasons.
That's brilliant. Love that. Okay, right. Who are we sticking between the sticks for the Banks 11?
There is only one candidate, and it would be this guy, whatever the criteria, and that's Phil Parkes.
Yep.
He was the goalkeeper when I started going to watch West Ham regularly in '83. Obviously, he was the cup-winning goalkeeper in 1980, and through various avenues in social media, I got to know his daughter quite well, and as a result of that, we managed to get him along as a special guest on the West Ham podcast, Stop Hammer Time, that I'm involved with. We had a good chat. He signed a few bits for me, and then we thought no more about it until my latest book came out 2 years ago, and he very graciously agreed to write the foreword for it.
Wow.
So
nice guy.
We had a very, very long chat on the phone, and he put down a 1,000 words or so for me. Fantastic. And ever since then, and then he went and got he asked for a couple of copies of the book, which obviously I was happy to oblige with, and as a nice little surprise, he sent me one copy back signed by the entire 1980 Cup squad.
Wow.
So that's one of my prized possessions now.
Oh, what a guy. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Obviously, people's different stories, and obviously we interview different ages and people from different places around the world. But the guys who talk about Phil Parkes talk about him with so fond memories, and and he seems like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, he is a lovely, lovely guy.
Yeah, but okay, we'll put Parkes in. So if Parkes is in goal, who's going to go left back?
Left back, I've gone with Julian Dix. Again, through work in the podcast. He was one of the live guests that we had, and again, not afraid to speak his mind. I think it's fair to say. At that time, that was before he was involved back with the club with Slaven Bilic when he brought him back as a coach. So I think he felt a bit more able to speak his mind. But I'd done a quiz that night for those that were present, and one of the questions I'd put down was mentioned that he was Hammer of the Year 3 times, and the question was, who was he runner up to in 89, I think it was. And this Bristolian accent from the back of the room piped up. It was 4 times. So there's a man who knows his own history.
He knows his own history. Yeah, bless him.
Wasn't afraid to correct me, but he was really good about it. And and again, what a nice guy, and completely opposite to his on-field persona.
Yeah, and a great player as well. On the
pitch.
What a
left foot!
What a left foot!
What a left foot! Yeah.
I mean, I think I came quite sort of late-ish into West Ham, so I think 92, 93 season was when I started, so the promotion season. So I was a glory hunter, and he scored the first goal I ever saw at West Ham, which was the 5-3 at Oxford United, and it was like, I think it's like 35
swerved all over the place.
Yeah, but it's one of those bangers. And I was on the Stop Hammer Time podcast the other day with Phil and Jim, and one thing we were talking about is no one scores those belters anymore. There's 35 yards with no spin, but as soon as you hit it with no backlift, you knew it was going in.
They're always trying to curl it into the top corner now, aren't they? Not just hit it so hard that the keeper can't get anywhere near it.
Exactly. And it's a missed start. But I mean, around sort of the 80s, you had obviously Julian would do it. You had, Martin Allen. You had, people like Stuart Slater, Liam Brady. They could really hit them, really hard and just didn't care. Just straight through them. Right. Okay. So put Julian on the left. Who are we going for on the right then, Robert?
Okay. Slightly out of position. I hope you'll indulge me. But I've selected Stuart Pearce as the other fullback. It would have been back in about 2000. I read his autobiography, which was quite revealing. And it was while he was still at the club, and I dropped him a quick line in the post to the club to say, read your book, really enjoyed it. Could I possibly interview you for the West Ham fanzine? I was writing for Overland and Sea at the time. Thought no more about it. A couple of weeks went by. And I'd come home early from work because I was feeling unwell, and I'd gone to bed and the phone rang. I was about an hour, so I was half asleep, stark naked, and scrambled across the room, picked up the phone. Yeah, it's Stuart Pearce, West Ham United. So I'm like, it's not a great time, Stuart. Can we? And he was absolutely fantastic. I got your letter. Love to do an interview. So we arranged to do it that Sunday night. Spent a couple of hours on the phone with him, and again, not afraid to speak his mind. But because he was still with the club, he asked to see what I was intending to print before it was published, which was fair enough. But he was, I would say, a man of his word, and didn't mess me about. He was absolutely fantastic. And again, with Stuart Pearce, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, and he comes across really well on media when he's doing talk sports and things like that, particularly at the moment because there's no bloody sport. And
he was another one that could strike a football.
Oh God, yeah, God, yeah. But old Pearcey, he was probably phoning you in the evening when I'm coming back from a gig, doesn't he? He loves his music, doesn't he? He loves his music and stuff like that. Bless him. Yeah. Okay, well, that is quite a formidable set of fullbacks, I must admit. Who have we got as your defensive giants in the centres?
Okay,
centre backs?
I've picked Rio Ferdinand, and I met Rio when he was still in the youth team. We went to watch a youth team match at White Hart Lane. I think it was a cup match. It might even have been in that when they won the Youth Cup in 95, was it?
Something like that,
anyway, in the same team as young Frank and whatever. and just happened to be. I think they'd opened up the press area at White Hart Lane, and we were just having a sandwich or whatever. And I happened to be going down the stairwell, and he was coming up the other way. And I had my tape machine with him, and I just said, "Oh, Rio, do a few words for the fanzine." And he, again, good as gold. I mean, he was 17 years old, to be fair. He probably didn't know how to say no. But again, gave me a good 20 minutes of his time, and you know, I got the impression that he was a very well balanced individual. And when you see what he's been through in his life since then, I think he's dealt with it in a way that a lot of professional footballers wouldn't have done. And he's obviously one very level-headed and well-balanced individual.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, he was only a kid really when he played for us, isn't it? But he still oozed this sort of class, which I don't think we've as a club, but we as a nation really has had that sort of classy centre back.
No, I mean the only player who's really come close to him in terms of maturity at such a young age, I would say, is probably Declan.
Yeah.
But even then, you know, you could tell that even playing for the youth team. I think on the Stop Hammer Time podcast, they were talking about Lampard in the same way. I mean, as a 16, 17-year-old, even you could tell he was going to be a quality player, even if, you know, maybe not putting in the shift that he might do. But with Rio, you could just tell. I mean, his first touch was fantastic. His distribution I mean, he could quite easily have played in midfield for his whole career.
Yeah,
without a problem at all.
Easily. That's nice. Okay, so you got Rio. Who's your other centre back?
My other centre back is Slaven Bilic. And I think they probably did play together quite a bit. In fact, no, that back four doesn't quite fit together. But,
no, just one out, I think.
No, yeah. I interviewed Slaven outside Roker Park I think it was 96, when there was all this speculation going on about him leaving. And at the time, the speculation was that he was going to go to Tottenham. And I have to say, I was a little bit rough with him. But I was a little bit accusatory, shall we say. And he stuttered a lot worse then than he does now. But he got through his reply, and his message to me was, "I've got a wife and kids. You know, what do you want me to do? I like it here. I enjoy my time here. The fans are great. I love the club. But, you know, you're going to tell me that if you didn't get a better offer from somewhere in your line of work, you wouldn't take it?" And I was a bit sort of startled by that, because I was expecting some crock of shite about, you know, oh well, you know, it's all, you know, speculation.
Nothing to do with me.
Yeah. It speaks to my agent, sort of thing, you know. And again, he didn't. I feel that he didn't lie to me, and he honoured his contract to the end of the year, at least to see us safe. And obviously, it didn't work out for him, going to Everton, which he perceived to be a bigger club.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I was so happy when he came back, because I felt that he did get the club, and he understood the fans.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, he's and even I think even when he came back as West Brom manager, you could see there was still he was obviously trying. He was trying so hard, you know. He was really blessing. But yeah, I think and obviously he'll always be remembered for that last season at Upton Park, and you know, having a West Ham boy, so to speak, as manager in that last season made a big difference. I think, just for the passion.
I mean, for me, it's the only decent managerial appointment that Gold and Sullivan have made. Obviously, you could argue that Allardyce was the right choice, given that he got us up and kept us up. But the appointment of Allardyce was really the only the appointment of Bilic was the only one that he was the only one that would have given us that final season.
Yeah.
I think of the candidates that were around at the time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so that is a formidable back four, Rob.
Mm. I
Plenty of
wouldn't argue with them.
plenty of
Yeah,
goals as well, which is good.
yeah.
And a penalty taker as well, which is always useful with Dixie. So okay, so who have we got in the midfield? Who you got left wing?
Left wing, I've chosen Stan Lazaridis.
Oh, Laser, good shout.
Yeah. Another, I've either gone for people that are absolutely really, I've found to be really honest
Yeah,
or really genuinely
love
nice
it. Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And Stan was an absolutely lovely guy, and he we interviewed him on several occasions on away trips for the fanzine. But on one particular occasion up at Newcastle, I remember talking to him after the game, and he offered me his seat on the plane going back because he didn't like flying, and it was a propeller driven aircraft. Can you believe a professional footballer from Australia has
Yeah,
a fear of flying?
exactly.
Um, I think it was particularly because this was a bit of a rickety old,
Mm.
he was having to sit next to the tail gunner or something. And he actually said, he said, "Did you come up by car?" Yeah. There's 5 of us in the car. He said, I'll happily swap with you if you want to go back on the plane. And I said, well, I don't think it works like that, Stan.
No.
I think there's
But could you
things
imagine
like,
your mates as well? He's like, I
yeah.
was just stand there,
It's all right.
stands.
Stan's going to take my seat on. That's fine. Good old Stan. Loved him to
Yeah.
bits. I was very unfortunate to be right down the front of the Bobby Moore stand at Upton Park the night that he snapped his ligaments, and I
Yeah.
actually heard it crack.
Horrible.
Awful night. I think it was Grimsby in the cup, or anyway, was right down the front and heard it and heard him scream, and it was absolutely awful. But what a lovely fella.
Yeah. And a great player and so quick. He was
Mm.
one of those players. I mean, watching your digitalization of the reviews, you like
Yeah,
seeing Stan again running down that left wing was just.
it was a different occasion, but you remember him scoring that goal at Newcastle
Yeah.
from way out.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years before
Yeah.
my meeting with him. But yeah.
Oh, brilliant. All right. So you got Laser on the left. Who have you got on the right?
Again, slightly out of position, but I've gone with Florin Radicchio.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, interesting choice, but he sticks in my mind particularly. Again, same day I spoke to Slaven Bilic, I spoke to Florin Radicchio outside Roker Park, and what a nice guy. I mean, his English wasn't very good,
Yeah.
but we managed to communicate. And I had my little tape machine with me, and I waved it at him. Said, "Can I do an interview?" And he thought I wanted a photograph. So he put his arm around me, and I said, "No, not photograph. Interview." And he went, interview, yes. But we did the whole interview with him with his arm around me, which
Oh,
I
bless.
thought was rather nice.
Oh, how sweet.
And it's such a shame that I didn't. It was before the days of smartphones and whatever, and it's such a shame that didn't manage to get a photograph that day. But again, lovely fella and very professional in the way that Harry would not let you believe. I don't believe any of his stories about going shopping at Selfridges or not making himself available for the trip to Stockport. I believe there was a breakdown in communication in some way. But if he'd been given a bit more of a bit of a longer leash, I think he would have been a really good player for us.
Yeah, there was definitely glimpses, wasn't there? Glimpses, and I think it was that whole sort of raft of foreign players, and I think if they'd been given a little bit more time, you would have seen. Obviously, you look at something like Swansea when Swansea brought in 3 Spanish players, but with Martinez and the other 2, and they sort of transformed Swansea. I think we could have had the same thing with those 3.
I think they just tried to do too much too soon, and I think
right.
It was around that time that we didn't have one English player in the side.
No,
and if they sort of brought them in, as you say, 2 or 3 at a time,
it would have been better.
But yeah.
Okay, Dake. So we got Florin on the right. Who have we got in your centre midfield positions, Robert?
Okay, my first choice, and again, probably someone I would pick regardless of the criteria, Sir Ian Bishop. What a fantastic player that guy was. And one of the few players that we've had in the last 30 years that could just sort of dictate play from the middle
Yeah.
of the field without really doing anything. Just stand on the ball and pick out a pass. And I think it was about 2014. He was he lives in America now, but
Yeah.
he was over to do a few business things, and we'd been in touch about the possibility of me ghostwriting a book, autobiography for him. And we sat down, had a chat with the publishers, and we had a few discussions about what sort of stories might feature. And it got to the contract stage, but he decided at the end of the day not to do it. So, but again, really nice guy, plenty of time, and he always retweets all my stuff these days. Yeah, lovely fella, great player.
Yeah.
And little known fact about Ian Bishop. Do you know what football team he supports?
No.
He's an Arsenal fan.
Oh,
Can you believe
Bish.
that?
And
Scouser.
I want to get him on the channel. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
we'll let that one slide. We won't mention that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a class player in an
Mm.
era when there wasn't class play. If that makes sense, he had I think he was ahead of his
Yeah.
time in terms of that classness. Sort of David
Well,
Silva type classness.
yeah. But I think it's a testament to him that he's a legend at whatever club he's played at. He's loved
True.
at Man City. He's loved. Well, he didn't really get much of a chance at Everton, but he's very fondly remembered at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Even Carlisle. Where he, I don't know how many appearances he made, but when you look at his Twitter feed, you'll see all the fans of those clubs absolutely still adore him.
And also by retweeting to his 20-odd thousand followers, it helps you out of your views as well, Rob. So it's all good. Okay, who's partnering Bish in the middle?
And this is a slightly. He doesn't quite fit he does fit the criteria in that we spoke. Isle Berkovic. Opening day away at Barnsley in 97, 98. I approached him outside the ground after the game for an interview, and he claimed not to be able to speak English. And then, so I went off and interviewed Steve Potts instead, who was very close to making this 11, by the way. Yep. And I turned around and I heard him speaking in fluent English to another journalist. So I effectively got told to fuck off by Isle Berkovic. So that's how he. But I could forgive him because he was such a great player, and he transformed that team in the mid-90s. He was the missing link, definitely. Hartson and Kitson were scoring the goals, but he was the supplier.
Yeah, he wouldn't have scored. I don't think Hartson would have scored half as many if it wasn't for Berkovic's little dinks inside. That is nice. You've got pace. You've got a lot of creativity in that midfield, Rob. I like that.
I'm actually looking at this team and thinking it could do a job. Yeah,
it could definitely do a job now. All right, who's going to be? Who's going to be your front line? Who are going to be your two strikers to win get these goals for this team?
Okay, first one picks himself. That's Tony Cottee. Another really nice guy, do anything for you. He was, when my first book was coming out in 95, he was also doing his autobiography with the same publishing house. And the script for my book happened to be on the publisher's desk, and he was leafing through it. And he said, "Oh, this is quite good." He said, "Do you think he'd like me to do the foreword?" And wow. So Tony did the foreword, and we had our book launch on the same day at Upton Park, because it was the same publisher. They did both on the same day. So, and he was quite happy to share that day with me. Got a couple of nice photographs from it, which again, pre smartphone days, so it's limited. I think there's only 3 photos in existence from that day that I've got anyway, and it's a very, very precious memory for me.
Wow!
And he's been really good. He gave me his number, and we were able to. I've been able to ring him every now and then to sort of settle any disputes that. So, well, I'll tell you what. I'll ring Tony Cottee and ask him. Shall I?
I'll prove it. I love that. I love that. Yeah. What a phone call to say. Oh yeah, your first, your first sort of West Ham book is. Oh yeah, Tony Cottee, club legend. Wants to write. Do you want to do it? Yeah. Okay. Cool. That must have been the hardest decision you ever made there, Robert. Right. So who we got partnering TC up front then?
Again, a bit of an obscure choice, but have gone for the nice guy aspect. The late Eamon Dolan. Don't know if you ever saw him play for West Ham. He was a real trier, and what he might have lacked in talent for at that level, he certainly made up for in effort and application. And I didn't speak to him at the time he was at the club, but once he'd left, I don't know if you know his story. He had testicular cancer, and he had to retire while he was at Exeter, and they granted him a testimonial against West Ham. So we all trekked down there on a Tuesday night to Exeter to go to this testimonial, and we blagged our way into the players' bar afterwards, as we often did back in the 90s. The security was not quite so. We're friends of whatever, and we got in there and had a chat with him. Oh, what a lovely guy, and he gave us all testimonial ties.
Wow.
And he was so grateful for us making the effort to come all the way down from London for his testimonial. And I was so sad when I heard that he passed on, I think it was 2016.
Yes,
he died. And I believe I just read on Wikipedia earlier today that Reading have named a stand after him.
Really?
Because he was like youth team coach there also, or might even have been assistant manager.
Wow.
Just before his death. So yeah, that was really good.
Oh, lovely. And I'll let you put Steve Potts on the bench. We don't even have a bench, but I know that's
okay.
I know that's one close to your heart. So all right, so that's a great team. So we've got Parks in goal, we've got Dixie on the left, we've got Slav and Rio in the middle, Pearcey on the right back, and then we've got Laser left wing, Bish and Berkovic, two Bs in the middle. We've got Radachor on the right, and then we've got Dolan and Cotti up front. That could do a job.
It's a half decent team.
That's a lovely job. I really, really want to say thanks, Rob, for this. It's been really, really great chatting to you. And as I said, obviously, everyone, you can check out Rob's channel. I'll put a link in the description because it's great, and it is the Netflix of West Ham. And the book. Don't forget the book. National Hate.
Can I just say, all author proceeds, all author royalties are going to the NHS charities.
Fantastic.
As of a couple of weeks ago. So if you do happen to buy a copy, get one from me, and I'll make sure the donation goes straight through to the Just Giving page.
Great, Rob, and I'll link Robert's Twitter feed and stuff in there so you can contact him.
Lovely.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, Rob, and thank you for listening, everybody, and watching. And like and subscribe to the video, share it, and we'll be back soon with another guest. Thanks very much.
Thank you.